Imagine writing one of the greatest love songs of all time for the wife of your best friend. A story of obsession, of betrayal, of devotion, and of a forbidden love triangle that birthed one of the most iconic tracks in rock history. But how did a romance so complicated and so dangerous become immortalized in sound? And what happens when heartbreak collides with genius? It begins in 1964. A young model named Pattie Boyd was cast in A Hard Day's Night, a Beatles film. That's where she met George Harrison.
In fact, I got the part of a schoolgirl in the Beatles' first film, Hard Day's Night.
And that's where you first met George?
That's when I first met George.
2 years later, they were married.
Good. Could you both look around this way, come on?
George, 3 of the 4 of you are now married. How's all this matrimony going to affect your image?
I don't really think it'll affect it all that much because, well, we proved it really when Ringo got married. You're bound to lose a certain amount of fans, but...
She had already inspired one of the most beautiful Beatles love songs ever written, Something. At first, George denied it was about her. Everybody assumed it was about Pattie, he once said. But actually, I was just thinking about something. Years later, he admitted the truth. Pattie remembered the moment vividly. George returned from the studio one night and played her the track.
Let's hear something.
I started modelling when I was about 18, 19, and occasionally I would do some TV commercials.
But behind the romance, cracks began to show. George grew distant, drawn deeper into Eastern spirituality. And then he introduced Pattie to a close friend, a rising blues guitarist named Eric Clapton.
And I think I always will be. He's a lovely fella, and I love him very dearly. And I just call him up again, doing an album, Eric, would he come and play? Sure, he came over, played great stuff, Devil's Radio, Cloud 9.
At first, Clapton and Harrison were inseparable. They jammed together, traded solos, and even wrote songs side by side. That unforgettable guitar on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, that was Clapton. But beneath the music, something dangerous was stirring. Clapton wasn't falling for fame or fortune. He was falling for Pattie, his best friend's wife.
And I had become, bit by bit, more and more obsessed with his wife, Pattie, and was making amateur kind of inroads into finding out what was going on and what was happening to their relationship. And at the same time, trying to balance.
The obsession consumed him. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't focus. Music itself began to feel impossible. Then fate intervened. A friend handed him a book, a centuries-old Persian love story, Layla and Majnun by Nizami Ganjavi.
Eric and I both given the same book by somebody called Layla and Majnun, and it's a story written by a 17th century Persian poet. And it's a love story. It's basically about unrequited love. And Eric read it and loved it because at that time...
It was a tale of forbidden passion. A young man forbidden from the woman he adored, driven mad by longing. He wandered the desert writing poetry in her name. She loved him too, but their worlds kept them apart. In the end, their love destroyed them both. Separated in life, only united in death. For Clapton, it was like reading his own diary. He was Majnun, the lovesick madman. Pattie was his Layla. Unable to have her, he turned his torment into sound. Clapton picked up his guitar and began pouring every ounce of obsession into a song. To make it real, he formed Derek and the Dominoes, with Bobby Whitlock, Carl Rattle, Jim Gordon, and Clapton at the center. In the summer of 1970, recording in Miami, Clapton heard Duane Allman of the Allman Brothers play live. That same night, Duane walked into the studio. The two locked in instantly, swapping guitar lines like they had been playing together for years. Producer Tom Dowd called it telepathy on tape.
Eric and Dwayne had a great deal of respect for each other's taste, skill, and musicianship. And there was never a question that Dwayne was a fan of Eric's and Eric was a fan of Dwayne.
The intertwining guitars of Clapton and Allman gave Layla its fire. Urgent, desperate, explosive. But the masterpiece didn't end there. Its final 2 minutes were unlike anything else in rock. A mournful piano coda that lifted the song into legend. So powerful, so timeless that Martin Scorsese would later use it to close Goodfellas. The piano was credited to drummer Jim Gordon, a brilliant session musician of the era. But Gordon carried demons, undiagnosed schizophrenia, addiction, and paranoia. In 1983, he murdered his own mother, claiming voices in his head commanded him to do it. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. To complicate things further, singer Rita Coolidge later claimed the piano melody came from a song she and Gordon had written together. But when the record was released, only Clapton and Gordon received the credit. When the track was finally complete, Clapton invited Patty over. He sat her down, pressed play, and let the music speak for him.
And when I heard it, I felt that I was being pushed.
It was music as confession. Every guitar riff a declaration. Every lyric a plea. Patty listened. She was deeply moved. But she stayed with George. Clapton was shattered. The song appeared on Layla and other assorted love songs by Derek and the Dominoes. Yet for all its passion, for all its dazzling musicianship, the album flopped. It barely charted. Layla initially failed to make an impact in either the US or the UK. The reasons were many. The band was new and relatively anonymous. The song ran more than 7 minutes, far too long for radio, and Clapton insisted his own name not even appear on the cover. At first, this forbidden love song, born out of obsession, seemed destined to be forgotten. But life has a way of catching up. Eventually, Patty did leave George. Clapton later recalled, "When we finally acted on it, I went to George right away. I said, look, this is happening. The feelings are already there. What do you want me to do?"
It is already, there's the feelings there, and I have to know what you feel about that. Or, I mean, if it's almost like, well, if you want me to stop or go away, I will, but I need to know what. And he was very kind of cavalier, he said, well, take her, she's yours, kind of thing. But
it was the era of 60s free love, where boundaries blurred. Affairs overlapped. Partners traded. To George, wrapped in Eastern philosophy, the material world hardly mattered. It's irrelevant to the bigger picture, he seemed to suggest. But even if George could let go, the song never would. Because Layla wasn't finished. More than 2 decades later, in 1992, Clapton did something extraordinary. He stripped the anguish away. No thunderous guitars, no screaming solos. Just Clapton, a stool, and an acoustic guitar. The result was haunting in a different way. Where the original had burned with obsession, this version carried reflection. A man no longer raging at love, but remembering it.
What will you do when you get lonely? No one waiting by you.
Audiences were stunned. The performance on MTV Unplugged introduced Layla to an entirely new generation. The Unplugged album sold more than 26 million copies. It won 6 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year. It became one of the best-selling live albums in history. And the song kept echoing. Decades later, a boy in England watched Clapton perform at the Queen's Golden Jubilee in 2002. He was 11 years old. He didn't know the history. He didn't know the heartbreak. But when Clapton played those first chords, it stopped him cold. "Whoa, what the hell is that?" he remembered saying. His father pulled out the Derek and the Dominoes record, the Clapton Greatest Hits, the Unplugged CD. that boy picked up a guitar and the first thing he learned to play was Layla. A song born out of forbidden love, now inspiring a new generation of musicians. Viewers today still feel that connection. Some praise the research behind its story, the archival footage, the details that bring history to life. Others simply repeat what they've always felt, that Layla is timeless. Clapton's guitar work remains the centerpiece. Raw, desperate, technically brilliant, yet emotionally unrestrained. A reminder that the best music isn't just played, it's lived. Layla was born from a love triangle, but it became something bigger. A song that captured the ache of wanting what you can't have. A song that blurred the line between confession and performance. A song that continues to echo through every generation that follows. Because when a forbidden love triangle leads to one of the greatest songs of all time, the result is never just music. It's pain, it's passion, and it's immortality.